So, it's that time of year again, and for those of you that are watching this video outside the time frame it was released, what were you doing? Busy? Not even born yet? Watching your favourite VTuber? Loser. But no, the time of year where monsters, ghouls and ghosts dress the streets. Except you won't need a costume this year. Your pepperoni hard-boiled face is enough to scare even the most stoic of people. But no, it's the time of year where frights and scares are of plenty. Like when you're in your early 20s and you peel back your front fringe and discover your forehead has advanced into your hairline. That is more terrifying than any Halloweens I've taken part of. But I did do one of these videos a few months ago and people seemed to like it, so I thought I'd do it again and give you more creepy and more possibly true Reddit stories. So make sure you're watching at night, make sure you're all cuddled up on the couch, bed or office chair, as some of you like to tell me you're watching at work for some reason. Your Halloween surprise is going to be a prompt termination. But turn off the lights, because it's time to get scared at the fact I have to use Reddit in general for this video, and the fact some of these may be possibly true with people in your walls and a dark shadowy figure watching you in the corner tonight. And by the end of the video, let me know the angle and 5x5 reference grid of the location of the patch of piss you've soiled yourself with just from the fear alone. Anyway, Reddit stories. Now the first one revolves around old infrastructure. Whilst most UK pubs are older than most of American history, due to the fact America is so huge, a lot of infrastructure is spotted all around America. Some in the most bizarre and remote places isolated from society. More specifically, I'm talking about institutions, hospitals and asylums. Most of them built in the 1800s to 1900s. And quickly abandoned due to how remote they are, which has become a hotspot for urban explorers, as most times these places are completely abandoned, left to fend against the elements and are decaying, but also during the abandonment phase, a lot of things are left behind. In morgues and hospitals, it's mostly body parts captured in resin, and sometimes these places leave behind stories. But this story is about one of those said old buildings. I work as a transporter in a hospital. About 2 years ago, we moved from the old city hospital into a new state-of-the-art facility. The old hospital was built in the 1930s and was showing its age, and at night was just plain creepy. Each floor had an east wing and a west wing. The east wing on the 4th floor was the first wing to be shut down about 2 weeks before the move. One night at around 9:30, I'm up on the floor to get a patient from the west wing. I see a small group of nurses and aides who all used to work on the now closed east wing. They looked visibly shaken. I walked over to see if everything was okay. They told me they had decided to walk through their old wing for nostalgia's sake. When they were over there, the phone at the nurse's station started to ring. The computers and phones had not yet been removed. Not sure what to do, one of the nurses reached over the counter and answered the phone. The nurse told me there was a woman's voice on the other end and that she sounded confused. This is the conversation as best as I can remember it. This is... How can I help you? Hello? Who is this? This is... I'm a nurse. Is there anything I can help you with? Where am I? This is... Are you a patient here? Then the line went dead. That's when the nurse finally looked at the screen on the phone. They could see where the call was coming from. The phone gave the room number directly next to the nurse station. The rooms by this point had all been cleared out and the phones removed. They could see directly into the room and see there was nobody in there. That's when they bolted towards the west wing where I was getting off the elevator. I avoided that wing for the rest of my time there. Unfortunately, even after the place was beginning to be abandoned, the stories existed years before. My mother started working at the hospital right out of college. It was the only job she had ever known. On moving days, she was determined to walk through every hall before leaving for the last time. She had a camera with her and was taking pictures as she went. On one of the empty patient wings, she stopped and was getting ready to take a picture when the door to the room right next to her slammed shut as though someone on the other side had thrown the door as hard as they could. My mom decided she was done taking pictures. But the stories are not confined to the abandoned wings. This happened to me just last Friday. It was going on 10 and I was taking my last patient back to her room. She was a little old lady who was stable enough to ride in a wheelchair but definitely needed assistance on her feet. I got her back to her room and helped her into bed. I made sure she was comfortable and set the bed alarm before turning out the lights and leaving her room. I pulled the curtain behind me so as not to let too much light in, but not all the way so that I could still see her in bed, at least from the hallway. Her nurse was in the room next door and I needed to speak with her. Whilst I was standing there waiting for the nurse to come out of the room, I distinctly saw a person walk past the curtain inside the old woman's room. The person was about the same height as the woman and had the same grey hair. At first I thought she shouldn't be up and walking around. Then I remembered the bed alarm was set, the room was totally silent, and when I looked in, I could see her still lying there exactly where I'd left her. She had not moved an inch, and the bed alarm was still armed. That's when I got the most intense full-body chills of my life. Ah! Did I get you there? Did I make you tinkle a little bit? I bet I did. Pussy. But basically the story ends by nobody was in the room. The nurse came out of the other room at the same time. He gave the message and dipped. He was not fondling the balls of the paranormal activity. And left that old woman to just probably get her life sucked away by a ghost. Like a Dementor from Harry Potter. This guy really cares about his patients. But that's it. Moral of the story. Don't be employed in a building that is older than your grandmother when she was a fetus. Speaking of fetuses, the next one is a personal experience. But the topic everybody hates and despises, unless you're a Minecraft YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, and that is overgrown fetuses or kids. One evening about 3 months ago, I was sitting in my car, listening to my favourite Steve Nicks song and smoking. Before you say anything, I know how bad it is to smoke, and I'm fully aware of all the terrible things that smoking can cause. But we're all gonna die one day, right? I choose to live my life and enjoy myself, and my cigarettes whilst doing so. So I was in my car, in my own little world, when I saw 2 children who seemed to have come out of nowhere begin to head towards my car. I thought it was strange, especially since it was as late as it was. But hey, who am I to judge? I thought they would pass by and continue on their walk to wherever, but I quickly realised they were approaching my driver's side window. Creepy, but okay. I chose to just get out instead of rolling down my windows, because I felt rolling down the window was a bit rude, and to be honest, I wanted to be as close to the front door of my home as possible, you know? Just in case things got weird. And boy, did they get weird. As I was getting out, one of the children, a little girl about 6, asked why I was getting out. I simply answered, because I'm heading in for the night. I followed up with, you guys okay? They both quickly responded with, no, we are scared. The other child, a little boy, asked, may we sit in your car until our parents come? I thought, until your parents come? Where are these parents and where are they coming to? I asked where they lived, in which they answered, down the road. So I told them it was getting late and they just better head home. At that moment, both children peered up at me at the exact same time, and it was then when I noticed the eyes. Eyes like I've never seen before. Dark. Very dark eyes. Eyes that were unnaturally dark and cold. So cold. I immediately got an uncomfortable feeling. The kind of feeling that makes your fight or flight kick in. I knew I need to get away from these kids, and quick. I told them I was heading in, and the little girl asked, "May we come in?" I of course said no. It was then that the polite children started putting off an almost annoyed and angry vibe. I again told the children they need to head home, and the best I could do was call the police. When I get inside, I said goodbye and headed towards my front door. They followed. It was time I get a serve. These children were not coming in my home. They both began mumbling things, could not make out, but whatever it was they were saying did not sound kind. I made it inside, turned to lock the door when the knocking began. I was not answering that door. No way. I called my boyfriend and explained everything. Needless to say, the children eventually gave up and went back to whatever creepy, soulless hole they crawled out of. I hate to talk about kids like that, but they were not normal kids. Not even close. Now, if you ever see two creepy children, like at the end of a hallway, make sure you have your conceal and carry license. The next story is an experience that you will never experience, because believe me, barely anyone can stand you for almost an hour. People would rather speedrun their interaction with you most times, because no one would be this obsessed with you. So I'm a 21-year-old male college student. I go to a school that isn't huge, but is still fairly large. About 20,000 students or so. Anyway, my freshman year, 2.5 years ago, I went to my orientation, and being a kind of intimidating but socially awkward 6'3" male, sat in the back of the auditorium and kept to myself. About halfway through, this decently attractive blonde girl sits next to me and leans on the armrest closest to me. She was pretty good looking, so I just ignored it. Then she started staring. I asked her if she needed anything, and all she said was no, then started smiling at me. For the next half an hour, she stared at me, and I don't think she paid any attention to the presentation at all. Just my face. Once the presentation finally ended, we were split into groups to register for fall semester. Thankfully, creepy staring girl was put into a different group, but she had declared a different major than me on the other side of campus. Since each of the colleges at my school register in different buildings, I thought this was the last time I would see her and her creepy staring. I was wrong. I finished registering for my classes and went to meet my mom so we could drive home. I walk out the front door and there creepy staring girl is, hiding in the bushes. She hops out and walks up to me, doesn't say a word, just stands beside me. I decided that was enough and left. Fast forward about 4 months and I have all but forgotten about this girl. I move into my dorm, walk out in the hallway, and there she is, standing at the end of the hallway, staring at me. I don't know how she knew what floor I'd be on, as there are 15 dorms on my campus. I grabbed my roommate and told him it was time for a freshman get-together. She followed us all the way there. I tried to lose her in the crowd, but every time I thought she was gone, she'd appear next to me again, never saying a word. After that first night, I didn't see her again for a few weeks. I moved to a different dorm and everything was going great. I hadn't seen a creepy girl for a while and class was awesome. So I'm sitting at lunch eating alone one day and all of a sudden she's sitting across from me. She says the first words to me since the day of orientation. They were, "Why would you move dorms without telling me? I had to find you again." At this point, I decided I was done eating, got up and left without saying a word. She followed me all the way to my dorm, smiling the whole way, but thankfully, she couldn't get in because you had to swipe your ID at the front desk. The next day, she followed me to class, then stood outside on the sidewalk until I got out, smiling the whole time. She did this every day for weeks. She would follow me to dinner, never say anything, just smiling. One weekend, I went to Tennessee with a very good friend, who is now my girlfriend. We didn't tell anyone and we came up with it on a whim on a Thursday night. When I got back, the girl came up to me while I was eating and said, "Probably the creepiest thing ever. How could you drive to Nashville with that bitch? I thought you loved me. I'm going to have to do something drastic that I don't want to do." I'd never told her my first name, let alone my middle name, and she just threatened my friend. So I was more pissed than scared and stood up to my full height and said, "Bitch, listen, I don't know you. You've been following me around for weeks. I don't know how you found out where I went and who I went with, but if you touch any of my friends, I'll make sure you rot in jail for the rest of your worthless life. She started crying and screaming about how she thought I loved her and all this crap, and she made a big scene. She ran off once the security guard came over and I told him what was happening. After this, she would randomly show up in the hallway to my dorm, or follow me to classes. She even followed my current girlfriend, who absolutely flipped out on her. Then, somehow, she got my number and would text me at 3 in the morning. Every morning. How much she loved me and that she loved watching me sleep, which was weird. I was living on the 16th floor of my dorm. This continued for about 5 or 6 more months. The last time I heard about her, she had tried to commit suicide in one of the dorms by burning her wrists with a hair straightener, screaming about how me and several other guys had ruined her life. I don't know what happened to her after that. She disappeared completely. So those were some scary stories from the social outcast platform Reddit. But apart from spreading small increments of urine all over your bed now, what did we learn? We learned to avoid creepy abandoned old buildings, unless we want a facial of ectoplasm, but then again, we can always use the elderly as bait. We also learned to get our conceal and carry license in a school zone. Yes, the laws protect children, but it does not protect creepy possessed children from 9mm. We also learned the historic phrase, do not stick your dick in crazy, or maybe share the same oxygen, may be true, but you will never know. Because we all know you're sat alone on Halloween night doing nothing, except for creating a 2cm diameter hole in that Halloween pumpkin of yours. Just do be warned, if the seeds get under your foreskin, it is going to hurt. But anyway, happy Halloween, and bye-bye.